MacVoices is supported by ATTO, the power behind the storage, providing network and storage connectivity for Mac users for more than 30 years. Visit ATTO.com to learn more. MacVoices is in San Jose for AltConf and WWDC. I'm Chuck Joyner, and this is a real special treat because I get to talk to Dave Hamilton live in person. Live in person, Dave.
Thanks for having me, Chuck.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you doing here?
Well, I came here to talk to you.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's only how many 1,000-mile trip just to chat with me. I'm flattered.
Here covering everything, looking at all the new stuff and talking to people. I mean, we were talking just before. Certainly, you could sit home and learn all of the things that Apple announced and watch all of that stuff. But having the opportunity to see some of it in person is very nice. But even better is seeing people in person and talking and having these types of conversations where. That's what gets my brain going, and that's where I actually start learning things, because it's not just the facts, it's hearing different people's perspectives and interpretations that really kind of feeds me. So that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's this terrible temptation just to talk to friends, and yet you get so many interesting people, for me, stopping by and saying, hey, I'd like to talk about my app, and it's great, let's chat. And you learn so many different things from so many different perspectives.
That's true.
There is still value in meeting face-to-face at conferences and things like this.
Absolutely. It's the fuel that keeps everything going all year long, right? We all email each other, and that's great. I mean, it's super efficient, but kind of that reset of, hey, I'm a human being, you're a human being, we know of each other, let's have a chat, let's, deepen that relationship a little bit. It's great. And case in point, this, I think, is the first real conversation you and I have had, and we've both been here since Sunday, essentially. I mean, I don't know. We met at a party the other night.
And we shouted at each other a little bit, but yeah.
Right, yeah. But that's this is, you're right. The best part is meeting new people and being introduced and all that stuff. Yeah.
So let's just get right to it. You're a musician. You are a publisher. You have one or two other things going on. What really punched your button with all the Apple announcements?
Oh man, I'm always just interested. So specifically, what punched my button? I'm excited about macOS Catalina. I like where they're going with it. One thing, and I'm a geek, so apologies, but they, I'll take a step back. I won't step back because then I'll step out of the camera's view.
Yes, exactly. But and we are all friends here, so it's okay if you're a geek.
It's okay, right? But we as a people started with Unix, right, on our computers, and then we wanted to have computers in our homes, so they were way less powerful than those computers that were running Unix, so we had to create operating systems that were limited to be able to run on these tiny little processors that we could have in our homes. Fast forward for a while, and now we're back to being able to have Unix on our computers, right? And it's interesting watching that evolution continue to happen. One of the things we learned at the State of the Union in macOS Catalina is, we've had system integrity protection for a while, which is sort of a way of trying to keep third parties and end users from messing up, not messing with necessarily, but from messing up the core of your operating system. Well, with Catalina, that goes a step further, but it's also a step back 30 years, and there is now going to be a system volume that is separate from your user volume. So your operating system will be installed on one volume. We could call it a partition, but that's not entirely right because APFS doesn't really do it that way. But it will be segmented off. There's the system volume, and then there will be another segment that is your apps and user data and all of those things. And you will only be able to write to one of them. And the system volume will be read-only. And at first I thought, oh my God, this is going to mess a lot of things up. And it will. But in the long run, and even in the midterm run, I think it's a really good thing because it will keep the system stability as a priority. And I think that's so I'm excited about that. It's a geeky thing, but it will affect all of us.
Well, it's important, and I also think it speaks to the fact that there were a couple comments I heard about the Mac Pro. Gee, only 256 gig SSD. And at the end of the day, that's more than enough than you need for the volume, because that particular machine, the projects are never going to fit on any SSD. They're going to be on a RAID of some kind.
You got it. That's right. Yeah, yeah. You don't need. I can run most of my stuff on 256, including my user documents. I mean, I don't put my iTunes library and my Photos library on there. And to your point, with a Mac Pro, you're probably not even thinking about those things. You're just thinking about the big, huge Mondo, many hundred track music project, or all of your video, 8K video files that you're using. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't matter. So, put more RAM. You can have more RAM in it than you can have SSD, right? You can have up to 1.5 terabytes of RAM.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And that is the correct path for that kind of machine. You're not carting it around with you. The only computer where it matters, in my opinion, what kind of storage you have in it, beyond a minute. I think anything less than 256 might be a problem, but is a laptop, because that you are carting around with you, and you can't have that external drive there full time. But otherwise, yeah, it's all good.
I'm thinking back to the days of RAM disks. With a 1.5 tera, I mean,
Hey, if you really want the extra storage, it's right there. Well, it could be right there. You will pay.
Oh yeah.
But that's the story of the Mac Pro from the start. Is this with the Mac Pro, Apple is saying essentially the same thing to two different groups of people, albeit with a different tone. For the people that actually need that machine, they're saying, here it is. And to the people that whined and moaned and said, you don't make a Pro machine, Apple says, here it is. And, you probably don't want to pay for it, but this is what you asked for. And so here it is. And we know you asked for it, but really this is for these other people that actually need it. But there's this emotional attachment to the concept of a Pro computer. And it's understandable, right? We came the path that many of us that have been doing this for a long time walked. For a long time, that's the computer you needed. Today, for most of us, that's not the computer we need. And it's probably not even the computer we want. Much better to get, an iMac, maybe an iMac Pro, but again, most of us don't need that either. Or even a, i7-based Mac Mini, or a MacBook Pro now with 8 cores, right? So there's a lot of options, and having the Mac Pro sit firmly where it does in the lineup, I think now people can make that decision of, okay, I'm not that customer, and that's okay, which is good.
No, I know, I agree with you. I mean, because I've seen a couple things, just what you were saying, people complaining about, well, this isn't my Mac Pro. And it's like, well, you may not need a Mac Pro. By definition, you no longer, because when the Mac Pro was the Mac Pro, now the iMacs, the MacBook Pros, all those things have come close to or surpassed those old specs. So you really didn't need the next level. It's just not important.
Yep.
How about the iOS stuff, both iPad and iPhone? Do you think that would you consider it a fork, or what is it?
I consider iPadOS an acknowledgement. For a long time, there have been things in iOS that only apply to the iPad. Split view mode, slide over, right? Like it is a different platform. All you need to do is see one, let alone hold one, and that you interact with this device differently. So that's fine. It's, I think, smart for Apple to acknowledge that this is a different thing. And it gives them potentially down the road some permission to perhaps change the way. Right now, on iOS as a whole, things are pretty restrictive. Developers can't do certain things, and that's true across the board with all devices. Well, with the iPad becoming more and more of a creation device and a laptop replacement for many, many people, maybe there's some thoughts inside Apple that, hey, we can address, and this is just my speculation, maybe we can address some of these limitations, but only in iPadOS, and still leave the phone as fully locked down as it is. And if that were to come to pass, I think that's great. I think that would be a smart path for Apple to continue to walk down. But I think right now what I'm seeing with iPadOS is just an acknowledgement of, yes, we understand that this is a different platform, and that's a good thing. And it's also, with what we previously called Marzipan and now call Catalina. Thanks, Apple.
Wow, I hadn't thought about that.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think about it until the wrong word came out of my mouth earlier today. But this infrastructure in Xcode that allows you to take something you've written for iOS, check a box, and compile it for the Mac. Now, there's more you can then do to actually make it feel like a Mac app. But, this idea of a shared code base, with that in existence now for the Mac, this Project Catalyst, the third checkbox, the Mac is the third checkbox. There has always been a checkbox for iPad. And so, like, this idea of a fat binary that has, that runs on multiple things, or at least can be written once and run on multiple things. Okay, we should call this iPad OS. That makes sense. Different user interface elements, different interaction elements. Great. Okay, let's go.
So, I've seen both sides of this.
Okay.
Is this the best keynote ever? Is this as far as the WWDC, or is this the worst keynote ever?
Oh, huh.
Honestly, I definitely saw the worst keynote, and I've seen people that say, "Oh my God, this is just one of the best things we've ever seen."
It definitely wasn't the worst keynote. Is it the best? It was fine. It was paced well. They were moving very quickly at times, most of the times, and understandably so. They had a lot they wanted to say. Clearly, they skipped over some stuff, and that's how it always is. As Greg Joswiak said last night on John Gruber's talk show, really what you're managing to is people's bladders. And it's really what it is, right? You got 2 hours and 15 minutes, and you're done. And that's where they hit that. So, but I thought the pacing was good. I thought the information was good. It didn't drag on. There was a lot of interesting stuff. Most of it was stuff I was interested in, personally and professionally. And so, yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, I thought they did a decent job with it.
I mean, I felt like it addressed pretty much every product Apple has on the market. It gave us a little bit, not a lot of depth into anything, but they didn't have time for depth if they were going to touch on everything. And it just felt nice and solid, and I'm looking forward to everything, except maybe ordering my Mac Pro, because I won't be. Other than that,
I think they sold me a new Apple Watch at the keynote. I wear many different watches, but my Apple Watch is the one that gets more wrist time than anything else. And I had yet to hear anything compelling that would drive me to buy another watch. My Apple Watch is an OG Apple Watch that arrived on release day. It actually still works, which is, sure, that's a win. But I don't wear it every day either. But the noise, the decibel meter that they put in, the noise app that they put into that, I have always been, since I was 14 years old, I've been obsessed with protecting my hearing. I'm a musician, I enjoy music, and so I know how easy it is, especially for someone like me, to, suffer hearing damage, and so I've been really sort of maniacal at times about protecting it. And having a calibrated decibel meter with me at all times or an SPL meter, I guess is the right way to put that, is like, it's like, okay. I mean, I knew I needed to get a new Apple Watch eventually anyway. This one's not going to last forever. So, but it's like, okay, great. And I'll probably wait till the fall, because they'll probably rev the watch again, maybe. And if they do, then I'll get that. But I'll wait till WatchOS is out. But yeah. So, unless my Apple Watch dies before then.
Well, just take good care of it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not wearing it today, so that's
the. We could go on and on. We got to do this more often, Dave. I don't know why we don't. But wait a minute. There was one other thing I wanted to ask you specifically about: the router.
Yeah, the idea of HomeKit-enabled routers. So that communicated one thing very clearly to me, that Apple is happy to not be in the router manufacturing business, which is fine. I don't think they ever wanted to be in that business. I think they were forced into it when the iBook came out and there were no consumer focused Wi-Fi routers, so they had to build and sell one so that they could build and sell iBooks. Great. They're out of the router business. They've communicated that fairly clearly in a few ways, and that's good. The idea of, Linksys, Eero, and Spectrum as the first partners in these HomeKit-enabled routers, it's interesting, right? The idea that your router is going to be a filter for those HomeKit devices that you have that might also be doing other things on the internet. This will stop them from doing the other things and only allow them to participate in the HomeKit stuff. From a security standpoint, that's great. From a functionality standpoint, I'm curious how they implement this. Because if I have some device that is HomeKit compatible, say, take my Hue bulbs, right? So it's HomeKit compatible, great. I can talk with it via HomeKit, and that's awesome. But the Hue app lets me do more, or the LifeX bulbs, right? The same thing. That lets me do a little bit more, but some of that more involves invoking the either LifeX cloud or the Philips Hue cloud for the device to talk back and forth. If that is now blocked, do I then have to give up that functionality, or can I tell it, no, allow this device to talk to that server, but no others? And that's not really the Apple way to, that's too granular, too geeky for this type of thing. So I'm curious. I'm neither bullish nor I don't have any judgment on it yet because I haven't seen how it works. So
the only other thing that struck me as really interesting, Linksys makes perfect sense because they're a router manufacturer.
Sure.
Eero's owned by Amazon now. Was that a surprise?
Yeah, yes and no. The Amazon being willing to be a partner of Apple at the hardware level or software level, that's a bit of a surprise, right? But because Amazon has, their own smart home platform. And interesting that the first announcement, we don't know about release, but certainly the first announcement about true, security-related smart home integration with their router is for someone else's platform. Like that's maybe more telling about Amazon's plans than Apple's. But smart, Eero is, when they first came out, and even still today, it's a very easy to use mesh. I've always said that if Apple were going to get into the mesh business, or if Apple were going to stay in the router business, they would have moved into mesh because that makes sense. It's the, one place to think about it all, and it solves all your problems. And Eero is the Apple of the mesh business. And I think Apple recognized that early on and said, okay, well, wait a minute. Somebody else has solved this problem in a way that pleases us. Whether it's exactly the way Apple would have done it or not is sort of irrelevant. But this serves our users in a very meaningful way. Great. We don't have to do this anymore. Smart that they are in touch with Apple and willing to do this HomeKit thing. I think that, my guess is that has been in the works for a while. But also smart that, Amazon is letting Eero be a standalone entity, subsidiary, wholly owned by Amazon. So, which is good because as we understand it, as you hear rumblings here, especially here in the Valley, Eero is not going to make it if Amazon did not acquire them or someone didn't acquire them. This was not a cash out. This was a save the project kind of thing, as I understand it. So that to me, that's good. Because they're one of the best in terms of the mesh market, I think. Yeah.
Well, I'm running an Eero, and I'm super happy with it because it updates itself. I'm not a router geek like you are. The last thing I want to do at the end of the day is mess with my router. I want it to work, and I want it to be secure. And this is just one more set of features that it will potentially have. So I'm happy.
I agree. Yeah. It really, and we'll detour for 19 seconds here. Eero, Plume's super pods, but not their regular pods, and TP-Link's Deco. Those are my top 3 recommended meshes these days. And honestly, TP-Link, Eero and Plume are, the premium priced versions. TP-Link's Deco is the budget priced version, but in terms of features, there's not a whole lot of difference there. And Deco, on some of their models, even has an actually usable smart home radio, a Zigbee radio built into it, and that's all integrated together. So they're doing a good job too. I'm curious to see if they get themselves involved in this HomeKit capable router. It would not surprise me. They are very aggressive in this market too. So, yeah.
Okay, as I started to say, we got to get you back more often because this is way too much fun. Yeah. But at least we got to do it in person. I really appreciate it. It's good to see you, man.
Yeah.
Folks, we will have more. You never know who will show up. from AltConf and WWDC in San Jose. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.